Yeah, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Scot McRae. I'm the co-founder of Candidate.ID, and I'm delighted to be joined today as we're going to talk about, how to hire in-demand talent, both by Anna Turner and Tim Sackett. So Tim is president of HRU Technical Resources. He's more than 20 years of combined kind of HR and talent acquisition experience for Fortune 500 companies across healthcare, retail, dining, and technology. He's a prolific writer. If you haven't, read any of Tim's stuff, then go find it out. Talent Space, Fistful of Talent. He's a very popular HR blog called the Tim Sackett Project. He's also president of HRU Technical Resources, which is a leading IT and engineering staffing firm, which is headquartered in Lansing in Michigan. Tim, great to see you.
Hey, thanks for having me.
And Anna Turner's vice president of product for PeopleScout. She's responsible for leading the vision, strategy, and roadmap for PeopleScout's product and service portfolio. She joins from HR software provider UKG, which was formerly Ultimate Software, where she was responsible for product development strategy and new products and features. She's also a recognized expert on HR technology, but she's got deep B2B software product management experience with previous roles at high growth kind of tech companies in the B2B space, such as Snagajob, People Matter, Benefit Focus, and Blackbird. Welcome, Anna.
Thanks for having me.
So today we're just going to talk about how to hire in-demand talent, some of the challenges, and then some of the technology, that's coming on stream that can help you, solve these problems. So,
hey Scott, before we get started, can we define in-demand talent? Because I think all talent's in demand right now.
Yeah, that was going to be my first kind of question is, okay, in your experience, because it's different, organization to organization. For us, we see it can be dentists, can be optometrists, it's obviously software engineers, can be sales. So let's, Tim, you start with how would you define in-demand talent?
Well, I think that's kind of the joke right now, is because it doesn't matter if you, especially within the States, right? I can speak to that. I can't necessarily speak to the global markets because everything is still kind of in flux. We like to believe that we're on the backside of the pandemic in the States. We're probably still a little bit away from that, but globally, when I talk to a lot of people, they're still in the midst of, the pandemic in the worst ways. So, here, it seems like it doesn't matter what you're trying to hire for. It's all in demand. Truck drivers, retail, restaurants, IT, engineering, accounting, lawyers. It doesn't matter what you're trying to hire for. Everybody is struggling. And Anna, I'm interested to get your take, because I think over a decade we've developed recruiting technology that was really about, when we just said in-demand talent, seemed like we were always talking about, it was like two kinds of people. It was IT people, technical people, and it was nurses. Those were the only two in-demand kind of talent that we would talk about.
Yeah, I totally agree with your point. I think we're in a state right now from a market perspective where everything qualifies as in demand, whether that's, more even hourly positions, high volume type positions, leisure, hospitality, restaurants. We're seeing lots of things here in the States start to open back up. And then continuing, right, some of the areas you talked about, right, healthcare, technology, being two key areas that are going to continue to be in demand regardless of what's happening right now.
Yeah, for sure.
And what would you, if you were to pick a couple of kind of examples each, we'll start with Anna, kind of some of the main challenges that you see, when you're trying to hire in demand, and then, your experience of, what's kind of key to success.
Yeah, so I think when we think about what's key to success, right, with in-demand talent, I think the first thing is really understanding your value proposition as an employer, and leveraging that as part of the process. I think especially for in-demand talent, and based on today's market, people want to make sure they're joining an employer that makes sense for them. It's the right fit from a value perspective, from a culture perspective. They want to know what's good, but they also want to know what's not good, in a sense, so that they can make sure they're a right fit. So I think that's one of the top pieces that you've got to have first and foremost as you're thinking about being successful either in right now's market or in-demand talent in general?
Yeah, I like to call that, does your crazy match our crazy, right? Like, I mean,
Yeah.
like I was meeting with a head of TA for a large company last week, and we're talking, they're like, oh, we really need to redo our EVP, or we really need to do, like, we need to focus on our branding. And I'm like, and the CEO was in the room, and he was like, and he's like, what's that going to cost? And I go, well, like a full blown kind of project like this is easy 6 figures, right? And the bigger enterprise company you are, this is a 7-figure kind of thing. And he's like, what, are we really going to get anything out of that? I go, honestly, if I had to be honest, like 90% of employer brands are basically the same. We're the best people to work for. Come work here. We're going to develop you, blah, blah, blah. And it all ends to the same kind of end result, right? I said, truly, the ones that matter are the ones who, like Anna, you talked about, like, can you really define who you are uniquely? That becomes the most difficult piece, because if you can do that, now I'm not doing this gigantic shotgun approach to, I'm interested in all talent. No, I'm only interested into this amount of talent, right? These people here. And that's actually an easier segment to go after. But somehow, logically we think, oh, if I actually make us more open to talent, then it should be easier. And actually, I think we find you actually get fewer applicants when you have that kind of brand versus like, hey, we only love people with blue hair. Great. Now all blue hair people know to come work for you, right?
How do you manage that, Tim, where, obviously, you got off the career site, you have to tell, your employer brand story. Okay. And it's going to always be, naturally limited in the number of kind of like personas that you're trying to speak to, right?
Yeah.
Maybe only like, I don't know, 3 or 4 kind of main ones. But you hiring like across whole, different, kind of job families, 10s, 20s, 30s of them. And you want to, make your story to those people very kind of like specific and targeted and segmented towards those, but you can't do that off the career site, right? So how do you manage that?
Yeah, I mean, that's the $1 million question. Like, that's how difficult it is to have a really great employer brand. I still like the transparency side. I love the use of video when you're saying, because let's say you're hiring for 50 job families, right? What we know is that I have 50 employees, one of each in those jobs. So why on a job posting am I not embedding a small video from that individual or that hiring manager saying, hey, this is who we are? By the way, I can have an overriding brand message from our executive team or our CEO or whoever we want to be that visionary kind of leader that says, hey, here's how I see us, right? And here's this vision. And then as you're having employees and hiring managers speak to, what does that mean to me as I come down into this role, right? So, hey, here's the CEO saying, I want to be the best employer of all time, blah, blah, blah. And now I'm the cashier at a retail store. What does that mean? What does that vision mean to me as a cashier? And connecting those 2 dots, which you think, oh my gosh, that's so hard. Well, no, it's a 3-minute video and a 1-minute video, right? That's all it is. And it's being very transparent so that if I'm applying to that job, I now can go, oh, okay, I see what this executive said. And it's like from a 50,000 foot level, but on the ground, I just got to hear from a cashier what that means to them as well, in that way. And I try to tell people, because they'll go, if you do some of this work, they'll go, oh, wait a minute, that's not who we really are. If you talk to this person, this person, this person. And I go, and I do want to know who we really are. But what I want to know is who are we really on our best day? Because we all have crappy days and bad days. And we have employees who are cancers that we just wish we could fire today, but we have to go through the process. I don't want to hear from them. I want to hear from the employee that's like, I love working here. Because my hope is when I hire you, you're also going to love working here and you're going to have that same experience, right? So it's, again, that's a real experience. So it's being transparent. It's not a fake made up experience. What I hate is, and Anna, I'd love to hear your opinion on this too, is when we see branding where it's, everybody, seems to like, this is the best place in the world to work. And you're like, this isn't real. Like this is a commercial,
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think for every employer, they're in a different place in the journey, right? And there might be a different thing they're focusing on. We did work recently with one of our large clients, really focused around, bringing more gender diversity into a large manufacturing company. And to your point, right, there is gender diversity at the company in those roles, but we needed to spend time with those personas, understand what their story is and what's different, and tell that story as part of the recruiting process. And so I think for employers, right, it's really hard if you try to do everything. Sometimes taking a focused approach on maybe an area of friction or something you're trying to improve or really difficult to fill position or job family, to your point, is sometimes a nice way to make it a little bit more targeted and specialized and digestible.
Yeah, great point.
When you bring it back to in-demand talent, okay, predominantly, there are lots of people are chasing them. They're classically defined as kind of passive. They're not actively looking, so they're not on the career site, right? You got to go. You got to get their attention somehow. You got to go outbound to them, or intelligent kind of advertising. So how do you achieve what it is that you've just described in terms of that kind of telling your story that's specific to them when they're not actually looking? How do you do that?
Do you start? Go ahead, Anna.
Yeah, I'll start. So I get really excited thinking about this, right? Having been in the HR tech space for a long time, but I started my career as a recruiter, and just the advances we've got in technology are incredible. We're seeing lots of new roles that never existed before showing up, whether it's a sourcing specialist, maybe a employer brand strategist, a recruitment marketing digital manager. Right. There are new opportunities that we're starting to see, employers either look at augmenting their staff with, or maybe partnering with somebody for help on these things, that really focus, Scott, on exactly what you just asked about, which is, all right, so we can't assume that people know us or are already on our career website and just waiting for us to post jobs. How do we go out and find them, and start telling the story over and over again to at some point where they're interested enough to then seriously think about us. And that gets me really excited, just thinking back to, when I started as a recruiter, companies didn't have a social media manager. It just didn't exist because technology wasn't there and we didn't have that. And we're starting to move into this very different place where recruiting teams are starting to look a lot like a really great marketing team from a sales perspective. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, I agree. I also am a big fan of advertising. I think advertising works, right? Marketing works. There's a reason we buy crap we don't need off of Amazon and everything else, because those kinds of things work. Most of the time when I meet with a corporate TA team and they're talking about the struggle of top of funnel, of getting that in-demand talent, Scott, and we really start to dig into the processes and everything that they do, for the most part, they have like the blocking and tackling taken care of. What I find is that they're almost always under-resourced in advertising. They just don't, they believe if you put up a good career site and you put your jobs on that career site, that people magically are stopping by every day just to check them out. I'm like, no, that's not going to be the case. Like, no one cares. When your career site is literally like you putting a billboard behind your building thinking someone's going to see it. Like, they don't, unless they're specifically looking for it, right? Like, oh, we drove behind the building, now we saw the billboard. Great, thank you. That's awesome, right? So really the career site's kind of like the lowest ROI advertising you can have. So then you have to go out, right? Whether that's programmatic, whether that's, you do it on your own, one-on-one, or whatever that might be, but you have to advertise the crap out of this, because that in-demand talent, which might not be looking, is still going to be, advertising is still going to have an impact on that. And then the other piece of it is, what we find too is, in any marketplace, let's say you're looking for, an engineer, probably within your database, you have anywhere from like 25 to like literally 75% of the potential engineers in your marketplace that you might want to hire. But yet you've just never gone back in the database and literally figured out how do we nurture to these people on an ongoing basis? And by the way, nurturing isn't we have a job, 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 right? It's like, how do we get great content to them where they go, holy crap, like these people are talking my language and I need to pay attention when that email comes or that text message comes. And then every once in a while, right, they're like, oh, by the way, we have a job in case you're interested. You might not be, who cares? We don't care. Here's some more great content, right? Knowing that, subliminally, that's going to have an impact and work that way as well.
I think that, yeah, so advertising is key. When you come to like direct sourcing, a lot of effort, a lot of, expense and manpower and people goes against kind of direct sourcing. And a lot of it we see is, we have a role that we're hiring for right now. We'd love to talk to you. Okay. Mm-hmm. Right. So it's like cold prospecting. You might find 1,000 people and get like 5 responses, 4 of which will be no, sorry. So one of the things that we see a lot of, which is about top of the funnel, which is doing all of those things, but getting them into the database, getting them into the pipeline at the same time, by offering them to tell them a story, offering some content, bring them, here into landing pages or microsites to get them to sign up. So so you've got the advertising going well and it's programmatic and that's all working. We can come back to the kind of like refreshing the database in a sec, but yeah, sourcing. How do you kind of, what do you think is key to success in kind of sourcing in this area? I'll start with Anna.
Yeah, I think it really aligns with what Tim just mentioned. I think it always has been and still is true. The best recruiters, they are amazing relationship managers and builders. And they know that the candidates I'm talking to today, most of them may not be ready to make a move right now, but they might be ready 6 months from now or 12 months from now. Or the people that are ready, maybe they're not a fit for my job right now, but the next job I have open 6 months from now, they might be a fit for. And so how do you really keep that relationship going? Right. When I was a recruiter, it was a folder on my desk with all of those great candidates, right? That every time I had an opening, I'd go back through. So how do you maintain a relationship with them? But also as a recruiter, knowing you've got more recs than ever, you're trying to balance a lot of new things and new technology, right? To our point, whether it's for sourcing or advertising. I think that keeping those relationships up is hard. And I think that's places where technology is starting to emerge that can help us with that.
Yeah, I was going to say, because I know from in B2B and sales, a good salesperson can nurture about 100 or 120 people one-to-one, but that's not scalable. So you need kind of technology. So, the sourcers, we hear all the time, can do it in the ATS, can do it in the CRM, I've got kind of like lists within LinkedIn Recruiter, but they're just sitting in there. But so how do you do it in a way that's scalable?
Yeah. Our team, so they're on the sourcing side alone, like I always tell people, there's never been a time in the history of the world that it's easier to find talent than right now. And they're like, no, that's not true. Like you haven't recruited, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, no, I recruit every day. Like there's never been a time in the history of the world that's easier to find talent. Now, getting them to come work for your crappy job and your crappy benefits and your crappy pay at your crappy location, that's really difficult, right? But finding them is the easy part. And so Scott, back to your question then of how do we actually pipeline from a scale standpoint? I think, our recruiters have gotten pretty good of segmenting out and saying, hey, okay, I have, mechanical engineers in the Detroit Metro or electrical engineers or robotics or whatever. And they're going to have these different pipelines, which are going to have different nurture campaigns with them in terms of content. Some of that content can be used across, but some of it's going to be different. Again, we're lucky enough, right, to have Candidate.ID in technology to be able to do that, because otherwise you're doing it manually and it becomes really hard to scale yourself that way if you don't have the technology behind it. And so that becomes one of those really difficult pieces. But when you do have the technology to be able to tap those pipelines in a really fast, quick way, when you do have that opening, becomes so much easier. But it's not, from the sourcing tech is so good right now. It's not really about finding. It's about what Anna said, which is, how do we use our superpower of a recruiter to make people feel wanted, right? Because once you feel wanted and desired, if your current company is not doing that right now, guess what? You're going to go, oh my gosh, they're more pretty over there. I want to go date that company, right?
Yeah, I mean, let's come to technology, because so both of you are, kind of pioneers in terms of like using marketing automation. So marketing automation, a category of software that's been very successful in solving, this problem over in B2B, where, buyers are, in B2B, buyers are, kind of want to self-educate and learn about opportunities or companies on their own. It's a very kind of long, it can be a long journey while they research kind of, different potential suppliers. So how do companies, they won't engage with salespeople or with organizations until they're ready to on their terms. So how do companies, kind of get that relationship going, manage or nurture that relationship over a long period of time until they're ready to buy? Okay, so lots of parallels with in-demand talent. But both of you have kind of, some of the both of you have kind of experience of marketing automation and how it can help to solve the problems in in-demand talent and hiring in-demand talent. What's if you were to describe, okay, look, you've got ATS, there's CRM, there's sourcing tools. Describe kind of where it fits, Anna, and how would you describe to somebody and the key kind of, features and the power that it can bring. Well, how would you describe that?
Yeah, I mean, I think sometimes, right, people get scared by the word of, automation. I mean, really what automation starts to become and enable our recruiting teams to do is it's an extension of you and your team, right? Building those relationships with people. And I think what's different, right, about marketing automation for recruitment in particular is kind of two things. It's that very configurable logic and branching based on what me, Anna Turner, did in the recruiting process, right? The content, the drip campaigns, right? Based on what I did or didn't do informs where and what more information I'm going to be getting. And I think that's where it goes back to what Tim says, right? If they're starting to think about if they're going to date this organization, the more personalized and the more it matches with what I care about as a candidate, the more I'm going to pay attention. And so I think that configurable decision logic and kind of branching that's possible with automation is key. I think the other thing is engagement scoring, right? If we think about recruiters today, there's a lot on their plate. They're overwhelmed. Especially with the market dynamics right now, it's tough to keep up. And so knowing who in my pool of people I'm keeping up with from a relationship standpoint are most engaged and most ready for me to then spend my secret power, superpower with, right? Spend time with them, call them, talk to them. I think that's the other interesting thing that marketing automation brings. So those would be my two kind of areas that I would call out that are kind of different, right, than ATS or CRM.
Yeah, I love I'm going back to the engagement score, Anna, because I think so often, like if we think of a typical corporate average HR team, you're going to go and you're going to have a list of 25 candidates. Maybe you source, maybe some applied, blah, blah, blah. But the reality is all 25 are about equal, right? They all kind of have some experience. They all kind of have the resume, whatever. And you're going to start to contact all 25. Now, you're doing this under the guise of, oh, we only hire the best top talent in the marketplace, which is a complete lie, by the way. Like none of us actually hire the best talent in the marketplace. We have very little capability to actually know who the best talent really is, but we tell our executives we hire the best talent. What you got to was like, who we actually hire are those who actually want to come work for us that have the skill sets. That's not necessarily the best talent. It's just those who are interested in us. But if we really want to have increase our capacity and scale and be able to hire very quickly, then we have to know which ones of those are actually really interested in us. And that comes back to that engagement score of knowing where to go. And then can we put in pieces of automation that will be the next steps? Maybe one of those pieces is some personalization where we throw a real human into the loop of that, But I think that's the big miss is what people continue to believe that they hire the best talent. And you're like, no, you're only hiring like the tallest of the seven dwarfs, right? You're hiring whoever applied to you or whoever you sourced. Now you might get lucky and maybe the best talent's in that, but the reality is it's probably not. It's just average talent, which is fine, but that's who you're really hiring. But we can't go to our executives and go, hey, by the way, we hire the best average talent.
I mean, kind of engagement, and would you, if you had the choice between if all things were equal, would you rather talk to people that had really, really engaged with your story and your company's content and were really kind of, were demonstrating that they were bought into it, or somebody who maybe looked a little bit more, maybe, they might have had a few better skills in some areas, but they hadn't really done anything, who would you rather kind of like engage with and trying to bring on? I mean, what's your experience, Anna, in terms of having kind of, deployed marketing automation in a range of different use cases?
Yeah, I mean, I think from a recruiter perspective, right? And I think it's the same if you looked at a sales team at a technology company, right? You need to be really fast to qualify the leads that are coming in and understand, right, who's hot right now and who maybe is not hot right now. We want to keep nurturing them. 12 months from now, they'll have a propensity to buy. And I think it's the same thing in recruiting. With what's on a recruiter's plate right now, you have to, right, make some either guesses or potentially use some technology that helps you do this, really understand who's at the top of the list that you're going to be able to move really quick with. And, the best talent might be in that pool, and you nurture them. And when they're ready, maybe there's an opportunity to bring them on. But I think you have to be a little ruthless about how you spend your time to be able to find talent that fits the need, that's skilled, that's excited to be there. They're going to be engaged when they join, and they're going to stay. So that's my perspective on it. I see so much alignment and synergy between what happens in a normal sales process with what a recruiter really is doing today.
Yeah, again, I think like you get back to like recruiters and salespeople are really, I wouldn't say they were rewarded on short-term behaviors, right? Fill the position, make the sale. They're not rewarded on, oh, I pipelined a candidate that we're going to hire 18 months from now, because there's no way to, it's very hard to measure that, right? And so the behavior itself kind of goes away. So, I mean, again, if you were building a talent acquisition team from the ground up, like, you just had today's technology, and you had today's know-how, but you didn't have any of this past kind of behavior that we have, I think you would automatically build in some kind of correlation metrics between high engagement score, didn't hire now, but they're in this pipeline, and eventually we're going to measure out and see the ROI of this, and for how that is. I think that what we don't see is because it's just so difficult to do when we have really a culture around recruiting that is fill position. And it's all short-term behavior based. It's not long-term behavior based but then we have hiring managers that are going, why aren't you building a pipeline of candidates? Well, because that's not how I'm being paid. I'm paid when every time you hire somebody, then I get the kudos or I get the whatever, even if I'm just getting a salary, right? In a corporate position and no kind of bonus or commission, I'm still like rewarded in behavior by fill position.
Yeah, I agree, right? You're rewarded typically on the now.
Yeah.
And I think the work that you have to do, right, which many of the best recruiters do, right, because they know 6 months from now they're going to need something. It's very intensive work, right, and very tactical work. And so I think that's where this new opportunity comes in with technology based on how the market's evolving that can help do that work for them without them having to spend their time there.
Yeah, and we go back to the sales perspective. I started advising like corporate TA leaders, let's separate recruiting and sourcing and recruitment marketing away from recruiters. I want my recruiters to be closers. I want all this automation to get them to the point where, okay, now you get to talk to the hot candidate and your entire job is to get them to sign on the bottom line, right? Close them. That's all you do. I don't need you to source. I don't need you monkeying around with pipelines. You only close candidates. You're a closer. And now I have an entire team that's actually rewarded and measured on how are you building this pipeline of talent long term, and you're rewarded on those behaviors. I need this person still to be the now. I can't have that person be now and long term. It just doesn't work. It never works.
I totally agree with that. And I think that's part of the reason we're starting to see those new roles. And like you said, right, those new teams pop up that we haven't typically seen in talent organization, right? That really focus in a specialized way on the future.
No, and I think recruiters, like their job should be close. And by the way, hey, I have these recs. Hey, recruitment marketing team, sourcing team, whatever combination of that you want to put together, I need some more for this rec. And that's it. Let them go do their job. You just kind of tell them like, hey, I don't have anybody in this pipeline, or I don't have anybody that are, that I can talk to. How are you filling up, my schedule to talk to more folks? Should be, that's all I want them to be able to do. Now, again, that's kind of like best case scenario if you can kind of build it out that way, because so often we don't. They're like, okay, I don't have anybody for this rec. I need to start sourcing. I need to start reaching out. I need to start doing all these things, knowing that little bit of effort they put in most likely turns into nothing. All it's doing is it's buying them more time to wait for somebody to apply, is really what it comes down to.
We see, I mean, in lots of companies that we talk to, we see them trying to do this with their existing kind of technology. We see them trying to do it off either, slightly kind of more modern and progressive kind of ATSs, or they've added in a CRM as well, but they're still fraught with challenges from a technology point of view in terms of and struggling to do it. What's your kind of experience, Anna, where you've seen that the desire to move to the type of model that Tim is talking about, and the technology kind of like holding them back, and therefore where marketing automation would sort of fit in?
Yeah, I think it differs for us kind of client by client, right? And where the friction is in their process. I think one of the interesting things we've kind of seen recently, I mean, the way we're servicing our clients is very similar to what Tim talked about, right? We have a team of specialized people that focus around sourcing, recruitment, marketing, branding, advisory, right? Which is kind of one part of the process, which is different typically than the recruiters, right? That are working on the day-to-day and really being the closers and those relationship builders. I think one interesting way that I'll just share, in case it's helpful for our audience, that we've seen marketing automation help us recently. We, based on market dynamics, are starting to see more offer accepts and then declines through the process, because lots of these in-demand talent roles have, they are ready to come, but then they have another offer pop up or a counter offer from their existing employer. One of the things we've started to do recently is do some very targeted campaigning from offer accept to start date to really get those people excited and keep them excited and engaged. And previously that might have been, a recruiter or an onboarding manager sending new hires some updates and content, right? We can take all of that off of their plate, really automate that and drive it in a very personalized way. And then one of the things we're starting to do with one of our clients is alerting, the recruiting team if somebody's not engaging. Hey, everybody else is paying attention, they're engaged, but these people you need to get on the phone with right now because they're not engaging. And that's a warning sign we should be paying attention to. So I think that's just an interesting example about where marketing automation could come in and play based on a friction area of a process that we've seen.
Yeah, I love that. I'll take it one step, because we've done it actually for interviewing as well, because we get so many people that ghost interviews, that we've set up SMS nurture campaigns for let's say on a Monday, as a recruiter, I have a candidate say, yep, I'm going to go show up on a Friday for an interview. We will automatically throw them into an SMS campaign that will basically be in day one will be, oh, hey, by the way, Just wanted to confirm, interview Friday, 11 a.m. By the way, the security needs a picture of your ID. Can you send me that picture, right? Call to action. Are they engaged? And as soon as they become non-engaged, red flag jumps them out of the nurture. Real person starts to like bust them on the phone calls and other text messages to try to see what's really going on. And when we see where companies are having 40, 50, 60% ghosting on interviews, it literally goes down to like 10%. And then when we survey afterwards and say, hey, why did you show up for this interview versus all the others you could have, they get back to that superpower of a recruiter going, it's the first time I felt like a company really wanted me specifically. They don't understand that it's a nurture, right? They don't understand that it's technology pushing these messages. They feel like it's coming directly from, the recruiter. By the way, we've also added in where we'll have it come from a hiring manager. So a separate number. And the hiring manager is sending like a quick video like, hey, just saw your application. Can't wait to meet you on Friday. Bam, that's it. And they're like amazed by that. And like, Anna, what you got to is like the pre-boarding stuff too. What we found, another company has working with like 25% of the time of a recruiter was spent not, hey, we got them to sign on the dotted line. Now I have to make sure they actually show up. And so they spend all this time like holding this person's hand to the first day that they actually show up. And when we really dug into the capacity of the recruiter, we're like, why are you having your recruiters do this? Well, you could have somebody else. And when the recruiter's like, well, we had somebody in HR, but the HR person kind of treated the people nasty, right? They were like, kind of like, I need this from you. And why aren't you doing this? And I need this. And the people were like, screw you, I'm not going to show up. The recruiter still was like that, the new girlfriend kind of thing, like, treating them great. And, oh my gosh, we love you. I can't wait to see you, and the person couldn't wait to show up. And then HR treated him like crap. And so they said, we kicked HR out of it and we started doing it ourselves. But we like the same thing when we had teammates reach out to these new hires in pre-boarding. We had hiring managers reach out. And again, it was all through text messaging, but they felt like the company like wanted them so badly that they were gonna show up, right? So you reduce the ghosting impact so much.
So we talked about kind of effectively pipelining kind of in-demand talent. We talked about ghosting, a solution kind of like for ghosting. What other kind of like innovative use cases have you kind of thought about or seen or Anna?
Those have been the two main ones that we've seen, right? Of kind of pre-apply, right? Keeping people engaged. And then I hadn't thought of Tim's example. I love that idea too, yeah. Right? Of where can you start to bring in more automation on that candidate communication in process, right? To make them feel wanted and desired and excited about what's going on and spending time with that employer. I think ghosting for us, right, has been a really interesting one to take a look at. I think also lists has been something we've done with some clients. So, right, if you've got lists or a database or something from past conversations, that's a great way to restart those relationships in an early way, in a way that can be measured, most importantly, right? Who out of that group is going to be most engaged right now that you may want to bring into the process?
Yeah, I've seen some companies do some boomerang stuff, right? So like, hey, these people worked for us, they left, but what if, it's, the grass isn't always greener. How do we treat them like, hey, it's cool. Go get that other experience. We can't wait to have you back. So that, again, that content stream becomes a little bit different. Unlike traditionally when someone leaves you, we become like the old Jewish dad and we rip our shirt and you're dead to us, and never come back here. And that's how we treat like employees that leave us versus going, no, wait, hey, we still love you. We still want to be friends. We still want to be colleagues and peers. And we can't wait to continue to work with you in the future, because it makes it so much easier for that person to go, you know what? I made a bad decision. Like I took this job and it sucks. I want to come back and work for like the job I really liked that I left, and if you guys will match salary or whatever. And so you start to see people that really do a great job with boomerangs in terms of having the right kind of personality for it. We start to see a lot of people come back that were just like, yeah, they're second timers, right? Like give them a certain pin or something. I don't know. Like, hey, I'm coming back.
We've only got like a few minutes left. So I want to just kind of come back to ROI, and if you're talking to if you're talking to the business, if you're talking to a client, and you're selling it, okay, so look, we're gonna these are the main benefits. This is how this where would translate into kind of like an ROI, and how would you, what were the main areas that you would kind of emphasize in terms of building the business case for this type of technology?
I find that too often the reason that we don't get the technology we want in HR talent acquisition is because our CEO and our CFO don't trust us. They trust us. They don't trust that we're going to do the right things with the technology, because we'll go to them and say, we need a new ATS. Well, why do you need a new ATS? Well, because our team doesn't use the current ATS. Okay, does that mean that ATS doesn't work? Or is it because you're ineffective as a leader to get your team to use the ATS? Because I constantly will have people call me and say, we're looking for a new ATS. And I'll say, okay, well, what ATS do you have? And they'll say, oh, we have ATS A. And I'm like, I would have recommended A. A's really good. Like, yeah, but our team won't use it. I'm like, well, yeah, but then they're not going to use B, C, D, or E either, right? That's a you issue. That's not a technology issue. And so if we know that our CEO and our CFO don't trust us, and I want to get recruitment marketing automation, right, to come in because we know it's going to have a high ROI, I'm going to bring in my CMO or my marketing leader. I'm going to bring in my sales leader, and I'm going to say, look, here's what we believe we can do with candidates. And we've seen it work. And you guys tell your story, right? And then so now you're piggybacking on like the success marketing has had, but they're going to go, okay, we trust marketing and sales. And so if it works for them, it'll work for you. And now we can get that, right? So I'm going to kind of use some psychology. Anna, what do you guys use?
I think that's a great point. I think kind of two angles, right? I mean, one, to your earlier point, I think you have to know what problem you're trying to solve with technology. There's tons of great technology. There's lots of things out there, but you kind of have to know based on what's going on with your business, where you're hurting, where you've got friction or challenges or lots of time being spent, maybe. You got to understand it and be able to talk to it, I think, from that standpoint, and then also articulate how the technology can help with that area. So I think that's one of the things. And I think from what we've been seeing with our clients around marketing automation for recruiting, it's really about helping our recruiters spend time where it matters, right? Get to shortlist faster, know who's engaged, right? And then also, right, throughout the process, know if somebody's becoming unengaged, that you may need to intervene, right, and get them back on track. So that for me is where I've seen really the difference and the opportunity with what's possible with automation.
And okay, so just look to the future for a little bit. Do you see the kind of like the challenges right now around in-demand talent? And obviously it's been a very unusual last couple of years. Organizations are transforming towards like software and technology, and so there's this big transformation going on. Do you see those trends like continuing? So therefore, actually, the pain and the difficulty around hiring in-demand talent is actually here to stay. In fact, it's probably going to grow. Or actually, I think it's a bit of a, it's probably a bit of a just a kind of like a short-term, kind of more acute need. And so, do you see like, and then how does that play into the kind of technology and where the technology is going and how that sits with the kind of current landscape around ATS CRM? Some thoughts on that?
Yeah, I don't think it is going away. And I think there's such good market data out on this, right? Many surveys that have been done to, right, CEOs of organizations. We know that, right, human capital is going to be one of the biggest challenges over the next decade. It's not going away, right? We are in a unique market situation right now. But the fact that, right, the level of skill is going up, right? Technology is evolving. We're going to have new types of jobs that didn't exist 5-7 years from now. We know there's going to be a big effort and need for reskilling the workforce, human capital, and the demand for talent. It's going to be one of the top challenges for everybody over the next decade.
Yeah, I take a look at especially in the States. I think we're Japan 10 years ago, right? Japan right now they have a demographic crisis, right? Where their population is aging so fast that they cannot birth enough kids and get them grown fast enough to actually meet their demand for labor. in the US is exactly in that same kind of boat. We're not feeling it as much, but we're just starting to feel the precursor of what's going to happen over the next decade. And so this in-demand talent thing is not going away. We're going to have to be, as organizations, in this fight to either going to steal talent and pay for it, or you're going to have to build talent and pay for it. But there's no free talent anymore, right? You just can't magically post that job up on your career site and talent's just going to show up. Like, that's so rare at this point that it's not even funny. And so it's just a matter of what do you want to pay? Do you want to pay to steal it? Do you want to pay to build it? What you're going to do one of those? Which one's what is it going to be?
Cool, great. Hey, well, look, it's thank you so much for your contributions. It's been great. It's been great chatting with you. Any final comments? Any like takeaways to leave with the with the audience around around in-demand talent, around marketing automation, or
I would just encourage people that talent, the market, right, is challenging right now, but technology is coming a really long way, and it's continuing to innovate and evolve around us. What was not possible 2 years ago is now starting to be possible. I think that's the exciting thing about technology and where we're going. And I think marketing automation is going to be a key part of that journey for all of us in talent.
Yeah, I just think it's a huge capacity increase for recruiters, and those who adopt it will be so much farther ahead than those who don't, right? You can still do this job manually. You can pick up the phone and you can bust emails out all day long. But if you're letting the automation do it for you, you're at a different level than most recruiters that are out there.
Great. Hey, look, thanks so much for your time and the contributions again. And great to see you both. Keep well. Happy holidays if you get some time away, and look after yourselves.
Thanks, Scott.
Cheers, guys.
Thanks, Scott. Thanks, Tim.